The Battle of Martinique, also known as Harmon's Martinique and Bonfire, was a major naval battle fought in the Caribbean island of Martinique at Saint-Pierre, from the 30th of June to the 7th of July 1667 that came towards the end of the Second Anglo-Dutch War. A French mercantile fleet anchored in the bay led by Joseph de la Barre were attacked by an English fleet led by Admiral Sir John Harmon. The English were victorious, virtually wiping out the French fleet in the Caribbean, which contained no naval vessels, and enabled them to secure their domination and position in the West Indies despite being at the war's end. Background: the Anglo-Dutch War had spread to the Caribbean in 1665, and the English had been quick to capture Dutch-held colonies of Suriname and their island of St. Eustatius. A French declaration of war on the side of the Dutch in mid-April 1666 took the situation a step further and buoyed a Dutch counterattack. Quickly the French under Joseph Antoine de la Barre took over the English Caribbean islands, offsetting English control. First the English half of St. Kitts fell, quickly followed by Antigua and Montserrat. The Dutch, meanwhile, under Admiral Abraham Craneson, had reconquered the island of St. Eustatius and following that recaptured Suriname. With the Caribbean clearly in Franco-Dutch control, Abraham Craneson and de la Barre combined forces and agreed to a Franco-Dutch invasion of Nevis on the 20th of May 1667. However, this invasion was repelled by the English in a confused action. After this failed attack and the fallout that followed, the French merchant fleet, under de la Barre, moved to Martinique. The Dutch under Craneson moved to the Virginia colony to make an attack there. In early June, a new British fleet, under the command of Rear Admiral Sir John Harmon, reached the West Indies. Harmon brought 7 men of war and 2 fire ships with him, transforming the balance of power in the area. He set sail southeast from Nevis to try and intercept de la Barre's fleet and so headed for Martinique on the 25th of June. Harmon, with his original squadron, plus Jersey and Norwich, now had a total strength of 9 ships of the line, a fire ship, and an auxiliary. He saw 19 French West India Company vessels and 14 Martinican traders huddled beneath Fort Saint-Pierre, protected by 2 smaller forts by midday of the 29th of June. Battle. The 30th of June at 4:30 p.m. Harmon's formation attacked and stood into the bay. All ships were in action within half an hour. The combined fire of the anchored ships and batteries did some damage to Harmon's ships, but also the French ships and forts had suffered some damage, too. After nearly an hour of desultory fire, Harmon withdrew with the wind in his favor. This tactic of drawing the French fire was to become part of Harmon's strategy, for he knew that the French would soon run out of powder eventually. The French were blockaded, so no reinforcements could get through. The English could be resupplied if they needed it. The 1st of July. The next day in the afternoon, Harmon's flagship line and 3 frigates led the English fleet back into St. Pierre's Bay, precipitating a 4-hour firefight that ended with the English vessels becoming becalmed, obliging them to be towed out of range by the end of the day. The English rowers suffered heavily but managed to succeed in getting the ships out. Damage to the French ships was moderate, but Harmon knew the strategy would work. The 2nd of July. On 2 of July, Harmon again assaulted the main harbor, engaging in a spirited 3-hour exchange with its anchored warships and batteries under Lieutenant General Lefebvre de la Barre, Governor Clouderet, and Commodore de Loubieres, before the English were obliged to withdraw again. The French, suffering heavy casualties, were hoping for relief, but no ship can get out because of the blockading English ships. The 4th of July. On the 4th of July, after repair damage at 10 a.m., Harmon made his 3rd attack into the harbor, obliging its French defenders to expend a good deal of the remaining powder during a 2-hour exchange. The English withdrew again unmolested. Harman now saw that his strategy was working, so he repaired the damage and was also resupplied by powder and shot from support vessels from Barbados, which in course took 2 days. The 6th of July. This time on the 6th, Harman and his fleet entered into the harbour again, and noticed French counterfire growing increasingly slack. During a lull, Harman then used a fireship, releasing it, which then managed to slip through the smoke and grappled L'Escuronnais, which set it ablaze. This conflagration quickly swept through 2 other French ships, Saint Jean, Mercier, and Lion d'Or, which were consumed down to the waterlines. As a result, French crews panicked, forcing them to abandon most other ships. A confused action now began to take shape, with both sides not knowing what was happening due to poor light and heavy smoke both from the battle and burning ships. The fireship Huchel was set ablaze by its own French crew members, who then swam ashore. After 5 hours the English retired, leaving the badly shaken French resolved to scuttling the remaining vessels in the confusion and afraid that another attack would occur. The 7th of July. The very next day Harman and his warships centered in the bay yet again, but this time concentrating the fire on the 3 forts. As soon as they were close enough, the English unleashed a point-blank bombardment against St. Pierre's battered redoubts. Then the next target, Fort St. Robert, was soon reduced to rubble in the same way, but Governor Clodderet and militia captain Guillaume d'Arrange managed to resist bravely from St. Sebastian by supplementing the meagre magazines. For the fireship Saucy, this fort, too, was eventually battered into submission, and Harman, seeing his victory complete, retired an hour and a half later. After the battle had ended, Harman, though, realized his luck was in and discovered that most of his ships were nearly out of ammunition. Aftermath. Harman retired completely from Martinique before dawn on the 11th of July, returning to Nevis for repairs. The English had won a major victory at the cost of 80 casualties. They had burned at least 8 of the French ships, sank several more, and captured most of the remaining ships, for only 2 or 3 French ships are recorded as having escaped. French losses were heavy, as many as 600 were killed or wounded, with another 400 captured. Samuel Pepys recorded the news of the event in his diary whilst doing business with the Lords of the Treasury. And here, by Tom Killigrew and Mr. Prodgers, that for certain news has come of Harman having spoiled 19 of 20 French ships somewhere about the Barbados, I think, but wherever it is good service and very welcome. Harman, with the French fleet neutralized, then attacked the French at Cayenne, forcing its garrison to surrender, and then went on to capture Dutch Suriname. The victory, though absolute, came too late to have any significant impact on the result of the war. News of this disaster shocked not only the French but also the Dutch, who had been certain of the domination of the Caribbean. Cringine sailed back to the Caribbean in horror, only to find the French fleet vaporized and the English back in possession of Suriname. On the 31st of July the English and Dutch signed the Treaty of Breda, ending the war, returning to the status quo.